So I'm going to be leading this session, which we have titled as Masterclass in Edge AI. And my presentation, if we can be brought up, is going to be talking about living at the edge. Yeah. So I titled it Living at the Edge because it is a new area and there are many unknowns and we are solving them as we go along. I must tell you that AI, we think that every one of us know and understand what AI means. Like is going to ask you next what you think AI means for you, right? Like, so artificial intelligence is what we think AI is, and all of us in this room, I think, will agree. But recently we were with a customer, a dairy customer, and for them AI meant something else. It meant artificial insemination. So we were for a long time thinking we were talking about the same thing until we went little 2 levels deep and we figured out that we couldn't help him with his problem. Right? So it's always good to be clear, and we are here going to be talking about artificial intelligence, and in particular, we are going to be thinking about what works best with the support of the cloud and what works best at the edge. And given that the edge is getting as powerful as what compute was available to us in the cloud some long days ago, why not use the cloud is the question, and not why, why not use the edge is the question, and not why use the edge. So this is how we look at products and services going forward. So when we talked about artificial intelligence throughout the day, many times we are talking about AI which is implemented on the cloud, even inference engines on the cloud, especially if you're talking about unstructured data like videos, it happens on the cloud. And the reason for that is because the compute availability on the edge is minimal. But that is no longer the case. It's constrained still, but we know how to deal with constraints. When we first were using AI, we dealt with those constraints. So we bring back all that knowledge, and with the recent advances at the edge, we can make it work at the edge and give it all the power where the data is being generated and where the decisions are being consumed. That is the best place to use AI. So I already talked about AI for unstructured data is here. It's not just about spreadsheets with data which can be analyzed. It is about data which cannot be put into spreadsheets, which can be analyzed. Of course, the cloud is there. It's not going away, and we need to use it. We need to train in the cloud, and AI optimized for cloud platforms are there. And deployment of microservices from the cloud is again essential so that we are constantly updating what is out there at the edge. And most importantly, 5G has arrived. It's taken a long time, but we are used to delays in our train stations, but it has arrived. And the first stop for it will be IoT. 5G is designed not for you and me as a first place of application. It's actually designed for industrial IoT. So there will be many applications which will flow from here. I wanted to share with you edge use cases so that you understand what we talk about when we talk about edge AI. Here's an example. If there's an inspection going on, in this case, fluorescent penetrant inspection, normally this is a manual process. So you dip a part into the fluorescent penetrant dye, remove it, wash it. What is left is the dye in the cracks or dents. And you manually inspect it, write a report in a paper. Even today, that is the way it is done. But if you replace human eye with a camera and AI, everything gets automated. You can also remove the hands eventually, but right now the hands are still there. So AI is used in this case to identify the hands and not consider any reflections from there, not consider any reflections from the templates, which are identified in the green boxes, which are used for sizing. Only identify those defects which are present on the part, and even that, there are reflections which are not defects. So as you rotate them, if they disappear, they're not defects, they're just pure reflections. Here's another example. If you think about AI developed in some other geography and bring it to India, sometimes it works. Sometimes it requires a little extra effort. One of the things about India is that we have cows and buffaloes and all kinds of things on the road. And if you look at a Western road, you might have a car here, a car there, and something like that. Oh, we have everything on the road in front of us. Can AI handle it at the edge? It can, and here's the example. Even a horse sometimes might get mislabeled as a cow briefly, but by the time you get its full image, it does get labeled as a cow. So there is a significant amount of use cases for this. Of course, it will be there in automotive, but also it is there in surveillance, and it can be there in attendance. Not that we will take attendance of cows and buffaloes, but there are people entering, and we can also recognize faces. In the automotive area, there are, of course, many applications, and some of the players in India are really taking advantage of AI and really leading the world in what can be done inside an automotive at the edge without having to go to the cloud and come back. Seeing, listening, speaking digital assistant is an example. Also, the ability to take a nighttime video and make it more usable if it's a rear view camera, so that you can park and not run into something because it is nighttime. Of course, this is dummy data that I'm showing. It's not from a rear view camera, but you get the idea that in the camera, in the car, you want to be able to see better in the night. The camera is not going to offer it, but we can use AI. You can use gamma filters also, but it won't give you this kind of outcomes. The other example would be take low resolution video and improve the resolution at the edge. So what can you do with it? Content is constantly improving. Displays are constantly improving. Today we can view 4K on the right display, but 3 years ago maybe they didn't make 4K video, but I can do the upscale it on the edge. Right? Similarly, I can take a video which is in this case 180p and make it 720p on a mobile phone, because that mobile phone cannot really see better than 720p. So recognize the device, recognize the system on chip, recognize the input quality, and identify what output quality is required to be provided, and hence you can reduce the cost of transmission. Today, no OTT player is actually profitable, and 60% of the cost is the content delivery network cost. So without technologies like this, it's not going to be able to go to a new place. Wellness also can leverage the benefit of the edge, more so from a personalization standpoint. So if you have a wearable and the data has to go to the cloud, there will be people who are worried that, who else gets to see this data, where it is getting used, are they using it without my permission? But if the data remains on the wearable and everything needs to happens on the wearable, then you're a little more comfortable. And for more reasons than that, the wellness aspects, personalized precision happening right there at the edge is critical, and that's another use case. You still train in the cloud. You train with data where you know the people you're training with, and you're either paying them or they're a volunteer cohort. But when you deploy, the inferencing is done without any access to the cloud, and that is again something which can be very useful. Many of the examples I talked about, there is enough code out there in the open source. Of course, making it work on the edge is an art, but you can find like million faces available for training, including A.R. Rahman in the same database, right, for training people's faces. So you might think, okay, I can train on A.R. Rahman's face, but he's not in my employee database, so what can I use this database for? But you're not going to use it like that. What you're going to do is, the final layer of the neural network is a classification layer saying this is A.R. Rahman. You chop off that layer, what you'll be left with is a vector which becomes a signature. So if I want Nikita's face to be identified when she occasionally comes to Bangalore from our base in Delhi, then I can feed one image of her and I get a vector which is her signature, and every time she appears in Bangalore I can recognize her, given that the camera is loaded with this software. And Nikita, we do that, by the way. So there are these aspects which can be done, but much more. Think about a picture like this: hundreds and thousands of objects which need to be tagged, and it used to be done manually. Can you do this at the edge and automatically? Yes, this is an answer. This is not any image that I'm showing you is actually done by us, right? So it is not something which I'm picking up and showing you. So you can do this pretty much instantaneously. So if you have an image of a port or an airport or a street, you can say what is happening. So if you see something which is not right, so that you can protect our borders or you can protect your plant, the use case is yours. You can also do voice transcription on low resource languages. This is Pashto, for those of you who know it. But the reason for doing low resource languages could be many. One reason is that it doesn't get enough attention. The other reason could be that it is being used by terrorists. and we want to understand what is being spoken. So voice to text, that's all this is doing. And it's a low resource language, so there isn't Google API which can do it. So you will be able to do it using AI at the edge. So that is just to give you a flavor for what can happen. When you're thinking about something new, I think we should think about, delivering 10x. So if you think about healthcare and think about, identifying tumors through imaging technologies, it's okay, but AI can predict and prevent, like Amit Kumar from GE was talking about. So if you can identify chronic inflammation of the cells much before it becomes a chronic disease, that is what you should be using it for. It can be done today, so we should be looking at new ways of doing things, not just fixing the old ways of doing things.